Another video where you're going to see my computer screen instead of me, because there's several points I want to bring home here. Today is the anniversary of the death of Karnamaya Mongar after her abortion at Kermit Gosnell's clinic in Philadelphia. And there's some things I want to address. One is I want you to look at what my source is. This is the grand jury report. This is not something put together by a bunch of pro-lifers. I always provide my sources. My sources are always things like newspaper articles, medical journal articles, autopsy reports, health department inspections, medical board documents, but I still get, oh, you're using such biased sources. Well, Google Kermit Gosnell grand jury report, find it yourself, contact the DA's office. They might send you a hard copy, but I want you to look at what I'm using for a source here. And you can look, let's go back to mention number 1. The section on Karnamaya Mongar starts on page 117, and Karnamaya Mongar's file is appended to this. Now, there's several things I want you to get here. The first of which is I want you to look at the kind of source I used for this. I'm not getting things from National Right to Life, okay? I mean, I will get, what do you call it? Why did it go here? This is way to the end. Okay, here we go. This is talking about Karnamaya in general. She was a 41-year-old refugee who had recently come to the U.S. from a resettlement camp in Nepal. So this is a woman who had been through a lot in her life and survived a lot of really astonishing things, only to wind up dead. She couldn't survive a day in an abortion clinic. Now, the State Department of Health was supposed to be overseeing abortion clinics, but Governor Ridge's office had said don't inspect abortion clinics unless there's a complaint. But they didn't even investigate if there was a complaint. And the logic behind that was that it might restrict, quote, access, close quote. And I want you to really wrap your head around that the abortion lobby, that's groups like National Abortion Federation, National Abortion Rights Action League, NARAL, Pro-Choice America, Planned Parenthood, when they use the slogan, keep abortion safe and legal, that the assumption that ordinary people make is they want abortion to be safe for the woman, that they want the woman to be able to walk into an abortion clinic or a doctor's office for an abortion and rest assured that she is going to get medical care that is in keeping with typical medical care. But what they actually mean in practice is that they want to keep abortion itself as a practice safe from state oversight. They want to keep it safe for abortion practitioners to just do however they want to do. And you will look again and again and again and you'll see this. Okay. So the state knew before Karnamaya Mongar died that things were really bad. Okay, the Department of Health inspected Women's Medical Society in 1979, issuing approval to open an abortion clinic, but did not go back until 10 years later. Found problems, but Gosnell promised to fix them, so they just kind of blew it off. They came back in 92 and 93 noting violations, but failing to come back and make sure they were corrected. But at least they were showing up. But after 1993, they did not go in at all. Okay? When Governor Casey left and Governor Ridge came, officials concluded that inspections put up a barrier to women seeking abortions. Okay? So the abortion itself becomes more important than the woman. Now, Attorneys of women who were injured reported to the health department. A doctor from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia hand-delivered a complaint after patients he referred were coming back with the same venereal disease. A medical examiner of Delaware County said that Gosnell performed an illegal abortion on a 14-year-old girl carrying a 30-week baby, and still they didn't go in. They did not even go in after they were notified of Karnamaya Mongar's death. They did nothing until the drug raid hit the press, and they were kind of forced to do something. So, I mean, this is a lesson to pro-lifers and pro-choicers, because that attitude, that access über alles, that existed prior to legalization. I saw a lot of really horrible illegal abortionists where the state evidently took the same attitude that Pennsylvania was taking here with Gosnell. This, big fat hairy deal. Who cares? Another dead woman. So, let's go on ahead and get more information. The National Abortion Federation also had some culpability here. Now, this was after Karnamaya Mongar's death. He asked to become a member, and NAF came and inspected the clinic, saw how disgusting it was, and they didn't let him become a member, but they did not complain to the state. In retrospect, we know there wouldn't have been any point, but at least there should have been a record that they reported him. And up until the day of the raid, Gosnell was still working 1 day a week at a National Abortion Federation member clinic in Delaware. So even after an inspector had come in, seen how deplorable it was, and I'm going to describe how deplorable things were, apparently no word went out. Do not trust this man with women. Send them someplace else. So, let's proceed. Keep searching ahead. So, go ahead. It's talking about the different staff and shows their involvement with Karnamaya Mongar's death. So, just look at how much garbage they had going on there. Oh, yeah, let's go back. So, just as an aside, so immediately after Karnamaya's death, Gosnell sought membership in the National Abortion Federation, and he did attend their meetings. Their meetings are open if you pay the admission price. And that's where he got the idea from snipping, he said, from Martin Haskell's dilation and extraction, aka partial birth abortion presentation. So an inspector from NAF went to Gosnell's clinic, just saw that the place was nasty. I mean, they had cleaned the place, but it was really nasty again by the time they got there. The inspector noticed that the facility was packed with so much stuff that she couldn't even find a place to put her overnight bag. The layout was confusing, and she was concerned that the patients couldn't find their way around or out of it. Concerned that there were plants everywhere, including in the procedure room and rooms designated as labs, and that Gosnell showed her a bed where he let his out-of-state patients spend the night unsupervised, unattended, and possibly unable to find the bathroom or the exits. The evaluator watched a few first trimester procedures. She noticed that nobody was monitoring or taking vital signs of patients who were being sedated. Asked Gosnell about the pulse oximeter that should have been used for monitoring, but he said it was broken. And this is a month after Karnamaya Mongar's death. He hadn't bothered to fix or replace the pulse ox. The evaluator noticed that while she was talking to Gosnell, a patient appeared to have been sedated by one of the staff. The evaluator was troubled by the amount of medication that was being given, that there was no qualified person overseeing that. What else did she observe? So the evaluator also noted deficiencies in record keeping, no notation of RH blood typing, no record of the medications given. Even with the NAF evaluator present, they gave pathetic counseling, violated the 24-hour abortion consent law. There were patient charts just scattered all over the place. Anybody could just pick them up and read them. And so she told Gosnell that he wasn't fit to be a member, that they couldn't even imagine a corrective action plan that would bring him up to speed. But even though she observed all this, like I said, he was still working at a National Abortion Federation clinic at the time of the raid. Nobody evidently had been warned not to send patients to this woman, not to trust him. So here's the section that covers Karnamaya's death. So, she suffered the fatal overdose on November 19th, 2009, and died the next day. Karnamaya and her family had been among the thousands expelled from Bhutan, and they managed to get to the United States on July 19th, 2009. So, July, August, September, October, November. She was like 4 months in the U.S. before she encountered Kermit Gosnell. And there she is with her husband. So when she was 18 weeks pregnant, she had a family friend take her to a clinic in Virginia, but both that clinic and another one in D.C. don't do second trimester abortions. And there's some reasons for that. Everybody tries to pretend it has something to do with the law, but states are not allowed to forbid abortions until the third trimester, and even then, it's kind of iffy to be able to do that. But in a first trimester abortion, the risks are low. The risks just go higher and higher. After about 16 weeks, even the very pro-abortion Centers for Disease Control admit that their pathetic measures find abortion to be as risky as childbirth at 16 weeks, and it increases exponentially after that. So a lot of clinics don't want the liability. Some of them don't want to have the equipment on hand that's appropriate. But often it's just, in an earlier abortion, you just suck out the baby, it goes in a jar, you send it to the POC room, products of conception, and you let somebody else deal with it. Go through, find the arms, the legs, the intestines, the skull, the spine, everything. But in the second trimester abortions, typically they are dismembering that baby with forceps. So they pull out a leg, they pull out an arm, they pull out they crush the head and pull out the little face. As the one tape that was released about the Planned Parenthood baby part sales allegations, she says, "Oh, an eyeball fell into my lap, and that is gross." And everybody started laughing because they could relate to, pulling out a piece of a baby and the eyeball landing in your lap. So they just don't want to deal with that. So these clinics, for whatever reasons, and I've suggested fairly typical, did not want to be involved in the later abortion. So one of them referred Karnamaya to Kermit Gosnell's clinic. So she went the first day. They did an ultrasound, which was performed by Latasha Lewis, who was not qualified. She did an ultrasound, drew blood. Nobody counseled her. They didn't even weigh her that day. They had her sign forms that she could not read. She didn't understand English. The officials, the grand jury wasn't even sure that those were Karnamaya's initials. So Randy Hutchins, who was a part-time physician's assistant, inserted laminaria to dilate Karnamaya's cervix so that the baby would come out. and administered Cytotec, which softens the cervix. So the next day she came back at about 2:30, accompanied by her daughter and the daughter's mother-in-law. Their friend waited out in the car. So at the front desk, Tina Baldwin gave the first dose of Cytotec and a drug that causes drowsiness, and they had her wait in the recovery area. And then it just covers all the various unqualified staff who were doping Karnamaya up over, what time did she come in? Around 2 o'clock? 2:30? So before they finally got her to where they were doing the procedure at about 8 p.m., she got there at 2:30, and this just describes people who were doping her up. Okay. Cytotec, sedatives, and it seems like just about everybody was giving her drugs. So they let Karnamaya's daughter be with her until a little before 8 p.m. when they chased her out and told her she needed to go wait. Karnamaya's daughter tried to wake her mother to say goodbye to her before she left the room, but she couldn't, and they said, don't wake her up. The medicine's supposed to keep you asleep. And she heard nothing else about her mother's condition until the ambulance arrived after 11. So, again, it goes on to how Karnamaya stopped breathing, and then see more about administering drugs, more about the drugs they gave her, the drugs. And if they look, the medical examiner's toxicology report that shows that even 18 hours after the last dose of Demerol, her concentration was still through the roof in her blood. The peak concentration was going to be off the scale, they said. So the expert testimony was just appalled by all of these drugs. So once they realized she wasn't breathing, there were some dulcitory efforts by Gosnell and Eileen O'Neill to do some CPR. But in the meantime, Gosnell went up to the 3rd floor to get a crash cart, which is what you use to revive people who stop breathing or their heart stop. It's supposed to have tools and drugs on it. Most of them didn't work. A lot of the drugs were expired. The defibrillator didn't work. And after they had her posed, then they called 911. And they did not tell the medics about the drugs they had given her so that she would not know what was going on. And for some reason, they'd taken out her IV. So the medics had to put in a new IV. Okay. Now, the medics are working on her and they're trying to get her out of the building. But the back door was padlocked. And they couldn't get her out the front because of how everything was cluttered and how tight the halls were. But a firefighter finally had to come cut the lock because they couldn't find the key. Took about 20 minutes, the Ashley Baldwin said, to get the door unlocked. And that's when Karnamaya's daughter and her mother-in-law noticed that something was up. They ran outside and saw Karnamaya being dragged out to the ambulance. They were able to administer medication, use a defibrillator. She had a pulse by the time, after about 45 minutes to an hour of aggressive resuscitation efforts, doctors were able to restore a weak heartbeat. So she was put in the ICU, never regained consciousness, and she died. She was declared dead 6:15 p.m. on November 20th because of this massive overdose. And, of course, the massive cover-up. And you have to get the medical board knew about this and did not inspect, did not close down, did not take any action whatsoever to protect the women of Pennsylvania. And Gosnell kept doing this. He was still doing it months later when the National Abortion Federation evaluator came. Nobody was doing anything to stop him. And you need to really understand that when they say keep abortion safe and legal, It is the abortion itself, the practice of abortion, that they want to keep safe and they want to keep legal. The safety of the women themselves, well, you can draw your own conclusions based on how little action was taken about what a deplorable place Gosnell was running, how much importance the women's safety actually carries when you're talking about people for whom, quote, access is everything.